The Cowboys want Javonte Williams back, and he wants to be back in Dallas. But that might not be a great idea. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we are answering your Twitter questions, including, should we change our thoughts on Demarvian Overshown's long-term future? Plus, what are the Cowboys going to do with their special teams coordinator? But I want to start with this question about Javonte Williams, because it's just assumed that the Cowboys are going to bring back Javonte Williams. But we have a question from @JJ Tor. Let's go. He wants to know, am I the only one that doesn't think re-signing Javonte Williams is a mistake? To me, it depends on the money and length. He's also injury prone, or the position's prone to injuries. Should they bring him back, Landon?
I do think that they should, and we've talked about this previously, and I still feel that way. But I also, I think that this is a good opportunity to talk about the fact that I do think there are parameters here, right? Like, I do think that there is a price point that I probably would not, necessarily re-sign him at, and I'm not necessarily interested in giving him, kind of a blockbuster. I mean, even really, we talked about, like a $6 to $8 million range, sort of deal. If we talk, if the numbers become like 3 years, $10 million, I mean, that may even be more than I'm comfortable with. I think what you're paying for when you're paying for Javonte Williams is stability. I think you're as much as you can get year to year from running backs, especially as they start to get older. But I think what you're paying for is you're paying for a guy that obviously understands your system. Can run both a good blend of zone and power, as you've seen him do in your own system. Is a very good pass protector, and is a guy that can carry the load in the sense that he can take a lot of these touches and physically withstand it. Now, I do think while recalculating the price here, you should be baking in the fact that you really did need another running back to kind of help support him, because by the end of the year, he started to tail off as all the touches started to add up a little bit on his body. So I think that should be calculated into his price a little bit as well. But I think if we're talking about signing him at the deal that we have kind of previously kind of kicked around at $6 million, maybe for a 2 or 3 year deal, that maybe that third year is really kind of an option deal. I think that makes a lot of sense, simply because it kind of ties things up on your offense and creates some stability at a spot where, this is not defense. Having that sort of continuity is really important year to year, and I think it would be beneficial to get that offense to kind of hit the ground running with this running back.
I think in general, I'm okay with them bringing Javonte Williams back for all the reasons that you mentioned, right? Dependable, reliable, can pick up blitzes. He ran really hard between the tackles.
Yeah.
I think he gave you an attitude in the running game. At the same time, I don't necessarily want to run back the entire same offense as they had last year. Not that it was a bad offense, but I think you should always be looking ahead on how you can improve and fix things, right? And I think bringing back the same exact offense, but more expensive, and it will be more expensive because you're going to have George Pickens, who's probably going to cost you at least $28 million a year. And if you're paying Javonte Williams, let's say $3 to $4 million more, then you need the offense to be even better than it was this year. And this offense was a top 5 unit by every metric. However, if you've been following this team, week in and week out, that there were games where the offense, as great as they were, didn't even pull their weight. I mean, think about some of these games like the Denver game or the Minnesota game in the first half, or the Detroit game where it took them a while to get started. That's not Javonte Williams' fault by himself, but I also just don't want this to be the exact same team on offense in 2026. So the question is there a way to either upgrade Javonte Williams without breaking the bank, or replace Javonte Williams at a cost that's very reasonable, like you paid last year. And I went to overthecap.com as you were talking, and right now they're valuing Javonte Williams at like $9.5 million a season. If that's the number, I have no interest.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And I think that, it's part of it is kind of like shock, like in the sense that he outperformed much more than what the expectation was for him. And so I think that that's kind of raising his price a lot, but the economics of the position shouldn't change, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the thing that kind of makes him worthy of even being re-signed at the running back position is the reliability that we discussed, but there's also a floor, a ceiling to that value, right? And I think that to pay a running back kind of the $10 million range, I would want somebody who was even more like a level even above from what we've seen of explosive, right? Because I do think that not all of his production was necessarily him going above and beyond, though I do think that was a portion of it, especially early in the season. I think as the season kind of wore on, I mean, he was getting a lot of what was blocked for him. And I think that the reliability should be extended to elite production if you're going to be paid that kind of money, $10 million.
Well, and that's why I'm open to a lot of different ideas here. Like there are a couple running backs who I think are going to get paid around the Javonte Williams price that we saw last year. Like I'll give you a name, Isaiah Pacheco, who's with the Chiefs, physical downhill running back, probably going to get a 1-year deal at $3 or $4 million. I wouldn't be surprised at an offense that's a lot better. And it's hard to believe that the Cowboys offense is light years better than Kansas City, but they are. Maybe you can get similar production, but if you don't want to go that way, maybe you pay a little bit more and you get a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker, who I think is really dynamic, or a Travis Etienne in Jacksonville, who's awesome. I think those guys are upgrades over Javonte. And if it only costs you $1 million or $2 million more per year, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. And then, Landon, we should talk about it. You can get passable level running backs in free agency for vet minimum, right? What if you do that and then you use a second or third round pick on a running back? I know the Cowboys don't have a second or third round pick right now. That doesn't mean they can't get one. I'm just not opposed to them trying to improve the running back situation, even though it was very, very good for them last year.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. And look, the hope is that they've been better about the way they approached the running back position last season. Was encouraging, right? In the pantheon of how they have approached the running back position in the history of the Dallas Cowboys, it was encouraging that they didn't necessarily feel like they had to go out and break the bank for the running back position. This, to me, is the next step, right? Having a running back that is good, but still not just understanding the floor, but understanding the ceiling of what their value is, right? And being able to walk away from a situation when it's potentially too much money, because I agree. You just listed off some very enticing, running back situations that, again, there's something about being able to pair together certain quality skill sets, which is, again, what we're already prescribing for Javonte Williams right now, just maybe at a higher proportion of running back one touches, right? I think the idea of having a dynamic group that can do a lot of different things and that can kind of be cobbled together to make sure that you have consistent play throughout the season, I think to me that's really appealing. And ultimately, it might end up being only slightly more expensive than paying somebody a whole bunch of money, which may then limit your options on what you can do to kind of help Javonte Williams from himself with all the touches that are required at the position.
And I'm not surprised that Javonte Williams and the Cowboys are talking, because I don't it's almost like musical chairs here. You don't want to be the one left without a chair. And if you're Javonte, I mean, these running back rooms fill up really quickly, and there's going to be a draft coming up. You don't want to be one of these guys that's having to sign a 1-year, $3 million deal again. If you can get 2 for, let's say, $12 million, you probably take it now, even if you could potentially, maybe there's a 70% chance you could get $1 million more in free agency. It might not be worth that risk. And I bet you that's why the Cowboys are talking now. But I think the overall point is, I'm not opposed to seeing what else is out there. And if they lose Javonte Williams in free agency, we saw last year they replaced Rico Dowdle with Williams cheaper, and it was no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is that people constantly are talking about the Rico Dowdle situation. And look, the Cowboys gave up Rico Dowdle. Guys, they got Javonte Williams out of this situation, right? And so and with on a cheaper deal, if I'm not mistaken, or like closer to, or
it was basically the same deal. Guess who's available again next offseason? Rico Dowdle, if you want to get.
That's right. So I mean, again, like this is a position that we've talked about is eminently solvable. So don't go crazy because you have some emotional feelings about how Javonte Williams played this year. Approach it the right way and offer him a deal that's fair, but it's also fair to you, so you can make the moves you need to make at other spots.
All right, let's talk about Demarvian Overshown, who is dealing with yet another injury. It's a concussion. He'll be okay for the 2026 season. But is it time to consider replacing him? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you, and Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work just as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your personal record, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You can trade stocks, ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform, and you can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends Advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that is robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. If you listen to the show every day, and of course you do because you're an everydayer, we've got the deal for you. Check out lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to get ad-free episodes of this show every single day for just $5 a month or $50 for the year. You're going to get exclusive Discord member service with us where you can come chat during the games. We can just talk draft. I've been talking with some fans about some prospects. It's all there. Just go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com. All right, Lane, let's talk about Demarvian Overshown. We've got a couple good questions about him. Is it time to be a little bit worried about Overshown given his injury history? And should the Cowboys be looking to grab not just one, but maybe two starting linebackers this offseason?
I mean, I certainly think it's time to be concerned about it and plan for it. I think even the questioner mentioned something about treating him almost like Randy Gregory, and I think he meant in the sense that there was a point during the off seasons when we just pretended that Randy Gregory wasn't here and had to like draft around him and still accumulate pass rushers like he wasn't here because you couldn't rely on getting enough games out of, which ultimately ended up being very true. Same thing for different reasons with Demarvian Overshown at this point, right? He's been this fantastic player who every time you get an opportunity for him to be on the field, it's lights out, and he looks borderline all pro linebacker. But the injury situation is obvious and is consistent over the years. Obviously this concussion situation is nothing like what he's had previous, and this will be his first opportunity to kind of go into the offseason clean and healthy once he's over the concussion. But yes, I think that you have to find enough linebackers to make sure that you're not going to be left out to dry completely if you lose Overshown, whether it's short term or long term, because it feels like we've seen a little bit of both there. And lucky enough, it's a position that you kind of accumulate talent and give them opportunities to play. So it's not like you're going to be going out and getting a guy that is going to have to sit on the bench while you're waiting for Overshown to get hurt. Like these guys get rotated out a lot. But yeah, I do think it is something that you have to consider. when you're doing your team building, that you can't just think that if you've got two kind of starting quality linebackers that you've got enough. You're definitely going to need more just to kind of rotate in and out, and also to account for the fact that you've got a linebacker who's really talented but also is pretty injury prone at this point.
I just think in general, I don't know what to think about their linebacker situation, because number one, we don't know who the defensive coordinator is, and then who that's going to be is going to change our thoughts on these guys. But the two backups, Maris Leofau and Jamar James, are those guys that could potentially be, let's say, like third linebackers, guys that you feel really good about? Or do the Cowboys need to add two starting linebackers and let Overshown kind of be that third linebacker who plays a lot of snaps when he's healthy, but you don't really, expect him to be healthy? I don't know. But the more and more I've been thinking about free agency and the way that the Cowboys are going to have to try to rebuild this defense, I'm starting to think the best bang for your buck might be going out and paying a free agent linebacker. And honestly, it's a pretty good class of linebackers.
Yeah, it is.
You want to pay up for like Devin Lloyd, who I think is awesome, or someone like Nakobe Dean, or whoever. There's some really good linebackers in this class. I think you could do that. You have Overshown, and then maybe you draft a linebacker in round one, and that's your linebacker room. And then Jamar James and Maris Leofau are competing for that fourth linebacker spot in special teams. And that's how you quickly rebuild a room. And it's also a great spot for the rookie linebacker not to be forced onto the field right away, maybe before they're ready. You can kind of ease them in early in the year. And it's also the best way to make or kind of insulate yourself with Demarvian Overshown that, hey, let's not load him up on a bunch of snaps early in the season. Let's try to keep him healthy for the postseason or, late in the year. I just wonder if that's how they're going to try to fix this linebacker room in one offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the way, no matter how you slice it, you're going to need a veteran linebacker. And you can go the route of a Kenneth Murray level.
I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to just
I know that his name. I know, yeah.
But it's like that. It's that group of guys: the Jack Sanborn, Kenneth Murray, Logan Wilson, like the guys that have
price
been
points.
Bobby
the
Wagner,
starting level, but replacement starting level linebacker that you want. You can go that route and then draft another linebacker, and I think that can get you probably where you need to go. But I don't disagree. It is a good class this year, and if you really want to kind of take a swing, you've got to accumulate talent and accumulate it in all the ways that you can. And I think one way that you can, look, there's lots of things that we can't do. Getting a talented boundary corner who's going to be ready to play and be a number one corner next year if Bland can't play, that's going to be really hard to do. Right? Like some of these other spots are going to be hard to do, but going out and getting a linebacker who that you feel like can come in and not only be a stopgap solution, but a plus and a positive to your defense, that's something you can do this offseason. If you really put some money, you named a couple of different guys. And I think that there's probably a couple more on top of that you could go out and get. So I do think that linebacker, that doesn't mean you have to take them off the list of what you draft. But I do think that linebacker is a position that that they should consider not only getting like just a starting level guy, but going out and taking a swing at the position and go get a good guy. Because at worst comes to worst, you have two really great linebackers playing with each other as long as Demarvian Overshown can stay on the field, right?
Well, and here's what I'm starting to wonder. This could maybe be a topic for a different show, but they're not going to be able to fix all their needs on defense in one offseason. There's just too many, right? Like there's going to be a spot or two that gets left behind, and you're just going to have to roll with the guys on the roster rather than spreading yourself so thin to make sure you get a corner, make sure you get a safety, you got to make sure you get a linebacker, got to make sure you get an edge rusher. What if you just try to address two spots? Hey, we're gonna fix edge rusher and we're gonna fix linebacker in one offseason. We're gonna spend big money on a linebacker. We're gonna draft a Sonny Styles at 12, and now we're good at linebacker. And we'll draft a defensive end with that Green Bay pick. And now at least we have one strength between our defense, or two strengths, our defensive tackles and our linebackers. Yeah, we're gonna have issues in the back end, but at least we have something we can hang our hat on.
And here we are. We've arrived at the beginning of this segment too, because to me, it's about the defensive coordinator here, right? Because I agree. I think that is the strategy: is personnel can solve two of these spots, but the defense coordinator is going to need to figure out that third spot. And if that's whether that's through X's and O's or repurposing players that you already have on the roster, whatever. But like I agree, just because of the resources that you have, you're probably only going to be able to fix 2 of the 3 kind of depth levels of your defense through personnel. So deciding who your defensive coordinator is, what area they are adept at covering up the best, and then investing in the other 2 spots so that you can make sure that you can make this defense go. That's the quickest way to get this defense kind of back up to snuff, as opposed to trying to just get enough Pro Bowl talent on this defense on itself to run some vanilla defense and be very good like the Houston Texans. Right. No, it's got to be a mixture of both of these things.
Like if they came out and said, hey, we wanted to make sure that we could stop the run in our nickel defense with just 6 guys in the box. And that's why they signed Devin Lloyd to a $16 million deal. And then they drafted Sonny Styles. Honestly, that's the positional value is not great, but I would totally understand it because it's now, hey, we've got these defensive tackles, we've got these linebackers. At least we're going to be good at stopping the run, and we're going to devote numbers to coverage. You're not going to have a top 10 defense, but this is how you get back to at least being average and playing competent football. I'm curious to see how the Cowboys handle it. Let's talk about the Cowboys special teams coordinator, Nick Sorensen, who it seems like he's going to be back in 2026. Should he? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving new customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel is giving users a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. In each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like the most. Like for me, I love the Steelers getting 3 points this week at home on Monday Night Football. I like them so much, I think they're just going to win the game outright. I've already bet on the money line. That's going down. But now you can get an even bigger payout while the playoffs get rolling with the profit boost from FanDuel. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions that you forgot about, bills that keep piling up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? But that's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your savings, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. I was shocked to learn how much money we were just throwing away every single month on subscriptions that we didn't even know we had. Rocket Money helped us cancel them right away and put that money back into our pocket. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Landon, our final question here is a really good one about Nick Sorensen.
Real quick, Marcus, I do have some breaking news that I think we need to talk about real quick. Todd Archer just mentioned that kind of in what we've talked about early on. The Cowboys have requested permission to speak, and this is just a little bit of coaching news here. Ready? The Cowboys requested permission to speak with Minnesota defensive passing game coordinator Durante Jones, Denver assistant head coach passing game coordinator Jim Leonard, and Browns safeties coach Ephraim Banda for their defensive coordinator vacancy, according to multiple sources. And here's another interesting note added by Todd Archer. The Cowboys were denied by Atlanta to talk with Jeff Ulbrich for the DC job, according to sources. He remains under contract with the Falcons. So that basically what he's saying here is that since they still technically have him under contract, they denied him. But if Atlanta gets a new head coach, then you can go back and request and get those opportunities. So just some notes to add in there real quick.
Yeah, and Albright is somebody that we really liked. He was the play caller in Atlanta. Wouldn't be surprised if he eventually becomes available,
Yeah.
just depending on what they do. But I don't blame them at all for denying requests right now as they look for their next head coach. Really quickly on Nick Sorensen, it sounds like the Cowboys are going to retain him.
Yeah.
Stretch and I were wondering if Bones Fossil could potentially come back from the Titans now that they moved on from their head coach, but it seems like that's the same situation there where the Titans don't really want to give him up while they're looking for the new coach. But do you think Sorensen should be back in 2026?
Well, a couple of funny things there. First of all, some of you guys know, if you follow me on Twitter, that I actually was at the Star the other day when they were doing the post-season press conference for something unrelated for the Cowboys. But I did the tour for the first time, and it was actually really neat. I recommend it for everyone who's a Cowboys fan who can make it out to Frisco to check it out. But while I was on the tour, I saw Nick Sorensen, and I was like, man, that's interesting that you're still kind of hanging around here.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, we got the news that he is hanging around. I got to tell you, I was surprised. I mean, I honestly, like, I always assumed even early in the season that Sorensen was always kind of a stepping stone for something else, right?
Placeholder for somebody else, right? Yeah,
exactly. And it's funny you mentioned Bones Fossil, because there was a list that came out today of most penalized special teams units, and the Cowboys had the number 2 most penalized unit in the league, but far behind the number 1 team, the Tennessee Titans. So I don't know what it is about evaluating special teams coaches at this point, especially since all the angles have changed, all the X's and O's have changed, especially on the kickoff and kickoff return teams. You've got a really good kicker, a really good punter, and a good, unit there. I don't think, honestly, that the special teams coordinator has any effect on that at all. No. So I think what we judge them on is basically on their coverage units and the operation aspects, and, any kind of trick plays and that sort of thing that get called, and how effective they are, or how well that they can scheme up a block or that sort of thing. And I just don't know that what we've seen from them so far this year has really inspired a ton of confidence that we couldn't at least go out and look for another special teams coach.
There was so many times watching the games and the tape this year that it just felt like that unit was sloppy. I mean, just Javonte Turpin's, he had 2 different illegal fair catch signals. He was jogging on a lot of these kick returns, and I know that's a little bit of his style, but he ended up losing a bunch of yards. The Cowboys had the worst field position on returns of any team in the league this season, and they had 1 long return, and came in week 18 against the Giants. I think this is kind of a make or break year if he comes back. I'm shocked that they're not. And maybe they are shopping around for a better special teams coach, but it seems like they're going to give him a little bit more time. And I don't know if that's wise.
I just don't know that he's earned it, it was odd that he got the job in the first place, like we said. And then, there wasn't anything about what happened this year that was, inspiring on special teams that he really had anything to do with, so again, like it feels like this is a situation where he's resting on the laurels of your all-world kicker and punter, and I think that's unfortunate, because I think that Javonte Turpin is a really good return guy, but he had a really not great year of returns, especially considering he just got a new contract, and if it's going to be more of the same of that, and the coverage units are going to have problems tackling, and if we're going to give up, we gave up so much. Think about it, especially at the end of the year, we gave up so much field position on kickoff returns. So I'm really confused why they would bring him back, and I'm kind of we didn't really get a chance to see the press talk asked about this in the press conference. I didn't hear them ask about this, because I think it was announced after the press conference.
Yeah.
But I would like to hear maybe something on the coach's thoughts here, because it was really surprising when they announced it.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast to get all of the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Cowboys ad-free, plus members-only Discord server access, and so much more. Head over to lockedoncowboys.supercast to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen the Locked On NFL podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.